In the mists of the Scottish Highlands, the people spoke of others, not human, not animal, beings who lived alongside us, hidden in plain sight. They were called the fair folk, spirits of the hills, the hidden ones. Robert Kirk listened. He wrote their stories in his manuscript, The Secret Commonwealth. He described a world where unseen beings walked among us, influencing lives, stealing away children, watching from the shadows. And then he noticed something remarkable. The tales of his people sounded eerily like the stories of the Bible. Turn back the pages of Scripture and you'll meet them too. The Nephilim, the Watchers, the hosts of heaven, strange beings who blurred the line between heaven and earth. But here's the problem. Most of us never heard these stories clearly, because the words were purposely mistranslated. In most English Bibles, the Nephilim are called giants, a single word that turns them into little more than legend, easy to dismiss, easy to forget. But the Hebrew word Nephilim does not mean giants. It means the fallen ones. That's not a bedtime story. That's a declaration. Beings who descended, beings who crossed boundaries, beings who fell. And the text goes further. The sons of God came down to the daughters of men, and from them were born the Nephilim, not giants, not fairy tales, but hybrids, a mingling of two worlds. Now ask yourself, why would the church turn fallen ones into giants? Because giants sound like a myth, but fallen ones, that sounds real. That sounds dangerous. That sounds like a threat the church couldn't explain. In the book of Enoch, we meet the Watchers, the angels who descended to guide humanity and broke their oath. But let's look closer. The word angel means messenger, but watcher means overseer, custodian, one who monitors. The Watchers taught men the cutting of roots and women the arts of enchantment. They taught metallurgy, warcraft, sorcery, knowledge given to humanity at a terrible price. Now compare this with Robert Kirk's Highland accounts, the fair folk, who bestowed charms, herbs, and forbidden knowledge, who guided some, tormented others, and lived invisibly among the hills. Two worlds, two cultures, but perhaps the same beings. Robert Kirk believed these stories mattered, not because they were quaint folk tales, but because they paralleled the accounts of the Bible. Angels, demons, Nephilim, fairies, spirits, the hidden ones. Different words, different cultures, but maybe describing the same commonwealth of beings. And Kirk also knew mistranslation was no accident. By softening fallen ones into giants, the church stripped the danger from the story. By painting Watchers as simple angels, they erased their role as overseers who interfered with humanity. Why? Because admitting the truth meant losing control, and keeping control meant money, obedience, and power. Yes, Robert Kirk's writings were not sermons meant for the pulpit. They were whispers, jotted down, passed along carefully, because to speak too plainly could mean ruin. He believed mistranslation misled the people. He knew that keeping Scripture locked in Latin kept the flock blind and kept the church rich. And he suspected that the world was more complex than the church dared admit. A world filled with beings that crossed between realms. His solution? Not confrontation, but quiet rebellion. One translation at a time, one story at a time, until the truth began to seep through the cracks. So what do we do with this? The Nephilim were not giants. They were the fallen ones. The Watchers were not just angels. They were overseers. And Robert Kirk's fair folk may have been the same hidden beings, described in the only words his people had. Different names, different languages, but perhaps the same reality. And if words can be purposely mistranslated to hide the truth of these beings, what else has been changed? What else has been kept from us? Robert Kirk's Secret Commonwealth was his attempt to bridge that gap. But the question remains, are these stories the stuff of myth or the echoes of encounters with the beings between worlds? This is what? Unclassified. And this was episode 3, The Beings Between Worlds. If this stirred your curiosity, hit like, subscribe, and share. Because next time, we'll look at the armies of the skies themselves, the hosts of heaven, the Hashemayim, and why the Bible describes not choirs of angels, but sky armies,